How do you handle configuration in a multi-environment application? Let's take a look at a simple example. I have a .NET Core application here that has two environments, development and production. And each environment has its own app settings file. So when we run this application in development, it uses the app settings for development. And when we run this application in production, it uses the app settings for production. But what if we want to add more environments? What if we want to have an environment for testing or for staging or for... Well, that would mean that we need to create another app settings file, and it would be nice if we could automate this somehow. Well, there is a way to do this using a tool called .NET User Secrets. So let's take a look at how this works. First of all, let's add a new project to our solution. We will call it My Web Config, and we will add a class library project. Now we will install the .NET User Secrets package. Now we will define an interface called IS, and this interface will have all the settings that we want to be able to configure from the command line. For example, we might want to have a database connection string, or we might want to have an API key or any other setting that we can think of. Now we will create a class called settings, and this class will implement the settings interface. And inside the class, we will create three properties: connection string, API key, and environment name. The connection string will contain the name of the database that we want to use. The API key will contain the actual API key, and the environment name will simply return the current environment. Now we need to make sure that the settings class is registered somewhere so that we can inject it into our application. To do that, we will open up Startup, CSS, and inside Configure as Devices, we will add a new service collection. We will add a new instance of settings, and we will register it with the service container. Now that we have registered the settings class with the service container, we can inject it into our controllers or any other class that we want. Now, let's say we want to use this application in the development environment. In that case, we will open up the command line and we will execute .NET User Secrets set path of settings development JSON. And now we can set the connection string for the development environment. We can set the API key for the development environment, and we can set any other setting that we want. If we open up the appsettings development JSON file, we can see that the settings that we have configured from the command line are now available in this file. Now, what happens if we want to use the same application in the production environment? Well, in that case, we will simply execute .NET User Secrets set path, appsettings, production, JSON, and then we can set the connection string for the production environment, the API key for the production environment, and so on. And now, if we open up the app settings production JSON file, we can see the settings that we have configured from the command line. What's nice about this approach is that we can add as many environments as we want. All we need to do is to add a new app settings file, and then we can configure the settings for that environment from the command line. That's it for this video. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.